can run, I think, the world has changed considerably just in recent weeks. I'll support the Republican nominee, but I don't know that it will be him.
Listen, I think we accomplished a lot positive when Donald Trump was president. If he's the nominee, I would enthusiastically support him. But I also think if he chooses to run, there's going to be a process, there's going to be a debate. We'll see what happens.
So I think that what we need to do is recognize that the Republicans have a big bench of leaders, and then we'll wait and see which ones are going to get into the election, and people will make a choice for themselves.
Reaction from some top Republican lawmakers saying Trump's 2024 announcement will not instantly clear the field of potential primary challengers. Welcome back to Morning Joe. It is Wednesday, November 16th. Good to have you all with us. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have former MSNBC host Chris Matthews with us this morning. Good to have you back, Chris.
Chris, great to have you here. And you obviously former host of Hardball, but you also worked for Speaker of the House,
right.
Tip O'Neill. And in that capacity, you had to know how to count votes inside the House. And now Kevin McCarthy, this morning's Wall Street Journal, Kevin McCarthy on the front. Yeah, he may have won the caucus, but doesn't look like he's anywhere close to 218 votes. How does that turn out for McCarthy?
Well, he'll have to do what Pelosi did all these years, and that's work with the squad. She had people on her fringe on the left, and she had to keep them in line. And I've watched her. There's a real quality of finesse there, where she would give them a break, let them hold up the infrastructure bill for a while so that they could get consideration of their bill, the Build Back Better bill. When that elapsed, the chances of that passing, they were happy enough with that to let the infrastructure bill pass. Maybe it's about a mother of having 5 kids. Maybe it's about having a lot of brothers. But she has an amazing ability to finesse, to work one group to keep them happy, and at the same time not give away the store.
Have you seen any hint that Kevin McCarthy possesses that level of political finesse?
What a great question. Not at all. Not at all. I mean, he seems shaken by events all the time. And,
right.
I just don't think he has that quality of calmness that she has. It's amazing. I think Pelosi's an amazing person. When you're with her, sometimes with her family, you feel like she's a grandmother, a regular person living a civilian life. And yet here she is at the age of 80 or something, running the legislative branch effectively, and only losing, a few seats now, a few seats. I mean, what an effective campaign it was for a mid-year for her.
What a terrible time for her as well.
Here's Kevin McCarthy, by the way, back in 2015 when he lost the speaker's race. We've been here before.
We've been going through this campaign, talking to a lot of members. But the one thing I've always said, to earn this majority, we're servants. We should put this conference first. And I think there's something to be said for us to unite. We probably need a fresh face. I'll stay on as majority leader. But the one thing I found in talking to everybody, if we are going to unite and be strong, we need a new face to help do that.
I'll tell you, listen to some people in Freedom Caucus, it's going to be hard to figure out how he gets the speakership, but we'll see. I want to talk about Donald Trump's announcement last night, because your good friend Doris Kearns Goodwin was on earlier, and she talked about how it was unique and just how negative that speech was. You, of course, I think one of the defining elections of your youth was JFK's run for the presidency in 1960 with the New Frontier. Mine was Reagan in 1980, and then again in 84, talking about Morning in America. Barack Obama, for many people, his hope and change. But Donald Trump, he's gone from American carnage to something even worse in 2022. Just talking about how much he hates this country and how much he hates where this country is right now. He has a lot of American flags, but all he does is run down America, run down America's military, run down America's law enforcement officers in the FBI, run down everything about America. How in the world can somebody who either hates America so much or only hates America, I guess, when he's not in power, ever gain the support of Republicans or independents?
Well, you know, Kennedy ran on let's get this country moving again. He had a great sense of the country slowing down after World War II, and he was going to get it moving again. He was one of the young sailors coming back from the war to lead. And Reagan, of course, was Morning in America. They had this positive attitude. It's going to be better. The minute I'm in office, it's going to be better. This speech last night reminded me of a guy foreclosing a mortgage. He came in with a grievance, his anger, his sense of indignation. It's like the people in that room that are paying bills, I guess, to get in that place at Mar-a-Lago. Those people were part of his anger. He was angry at everybody because they let him down. But I want to say, if I'm in the Republican nominating process right now, I'm thinking this guy could win the nomination because the anger of the average Republican after losing all these elections is there to be played with, to be expanded on. Trump will exploit that anger. He's the angriest guy in the world, Trump. And he's so angry about everything that's gone wrong. And he's even angry with his own people for failing him. I have never seen a guy who walked in the room, brooded around the stage, looked angry, and then he gave this speech. Where was the life in it? Where's the hope and the happiness? Where's he going to take us? He's going to take us to vengeance. He wants to get even. I mean, it's a frightening prospect, but I tell you, the forgotten men and women of the Republican Party, the ones who voted with the 40-some% last Tuesday, they're still there, and they're still angry. They're still forgotten, and Trump's their guy. I really think he's going to be a formidable opponent for DeSantis or anybody else, Christie, anybody else that challenges him.
No question about it, Chris. One organization that's not standing by him is the New York Post. If you look at this headline and grab it here, this is the bottom of the Post this morning. It says, Florida man makes announcement. See page 26. So Rupert Murdoch.
Well, they can do that, but they can't stick to that.
They've made their statement. But let me ask you about some of the people we just heard. Ted Cruz saying, let's open up the field and see what happens. But if Trump's the guy, he's the guy. Lindsey Graham was watching that speech last night and tweeting, boy, this is an effective speech. If he can stay like this, he's going to be tough to beat. You do hear some of the usual suspects sort of beginning to fall in line, or at least to say, I'm there if Donald Trump needs me. So do you think it's being overstated, the extent to which people are trying to put Donald Trump in the rearview mirror inside the party?
Yeah, I think they've even Mike Pence in his new book refers to the fact that the election was stolen. I think suggests it was stolen twice in the whole book, one in the appendix and one up front. They're all covered themselves. Cornyn covered himself in that bit you showed this morning, and certainly Cruz covered himself. Eventually, it's going to come down to who the nominee is, and they're going to back him. I have to talk about Joe Biden. I have always thought Joe Biden was trying to calculate whether to run again based upon Trump's move. Trump made the first move. And now Biden has to look at 2 years of being attacked for every gaffe he makes. And the second he makes a gaffe, he's going to know that Trump's coming after him because Trump is keeping count of all those mistakes. He saw it last night. And he's also got the fact that 6 years from now, Mika, is he going to handle the Polish situation with the same kind of way he's handled this time, carefully, with deliberation, skipping at dinner? Think about the Cuban Missile Crisis. The amount of calculation that could come into one of our confrontations with Xi or Putin, whoever comes later, is going to require such finesse, such intelligence and awareness of the other guy's moves. I wonder if he's thinking that he can take that 6-year commitment now, as well as the 2-year fight with Trump. It's a hell of a fight to look at on both fronts.